I have to admit, when I first looked at the source stack for today, I was expecting, well, plumbing.
Plumbing.
Yeah, pipes, filters, a storage tank, pretty straightforward. The kidney makes urine, the bladder holds it, you get rid of it. End of story.
Right.
It just feels like that part of anatomy class where you sort of memorize the tubes and then just move on.
I think a lot of people see it that way.
But then I hit this one number in Guyton and Hall, and it just completely broke my brain. Honestly, I thought it was a typo.
I think I know the exact number you're talking about. The filtration rate.
180 liters.
180 liters a day.
A day, just to, visualize that for everyone listening. Imagine a large soda bottle. That's 2 liters. We're talking about 90 of those.
90.
Every single day. That is the amount of fluid your kidneys are just churning through.
It is a staggering volume. I mean, if you tried to stack 92-liter bottles in your living room, you wouldn't have anywhere to sit. It's an industrial-scale operation happening inside these little organs the size of your fist.
But here's the paradox, and this is the part that makes absolutely no sense on the surface. We don't pee 180 liters.
Thank goodness.
Right. If we did, we'd be dead in about, 20 minutes?
Less, probably. You dehydrate almost instantly. Your entire blood volume is only about 5 liters.
Yeah.
So if you were actually losing 180 liters, you'd be cycling your whole blood supply into the toilet dozens of times a day.
Okay, so the average output is more like 1 liter, maybe 1.5 if you're really well hydrated.
Right.
So the math implies that the kidneys are doing all this massive, massive work to filter 180 liters, only to turn right around and immediately take 99% of it back.
It seems wildly inefficient, doesn't it?
It seems crazy. It's like cleaning your house by taking every single piece of furniture, every book, every spoon, and throwing it all out onto the front lawn.
Okay.
Just so you can bring 99% of it back inside and leave one little candy wrapper on the grass. Why not just pick up the wrapper?
That analogy is actually perfect. I mean, it's brilliant because it highlights exactly why the kidney works this way.
It does.
Yes. Because if you just look for the candy wrapper, if you only look for the specific piece of waste you already know about, you might miss something. You might miss a new toxin you've never seen before.
Ah, I see.
But if you empty the entire house, if you strip the blood plasma down to its basic components, then you are forced to consciously, actively choose what to bring back inside.
You only bring back what you know is valuable.
You only bring back the books you want. You only bring back the furniture that works. You keep the good stuff and let everything else go by default.
So it's not a waste disposal system?
No. And that is the biggest misconception we need to clear up right now. The kidney isn't a trash chute. It is the editor of your internal environment.
The editor. I like that.
Think about it. Stability. Your blood pressure, your hydration, your salt levels, your pH balance. None of that is stable by accident.
Right.
It is stable because the kidney is ruthlessly editing your plasma 60 times a day. And it comes back to the byline for this deep dive. Stability depends on what you let go.
And that's our mission for today then. We are not just talking about making pee. We are looking at how this organ keeps us alive through what you called stability by selection.
Exactly. And the sources, Guyton, they really emphasize that this goes way beyond just excretion. I mean, we're going to see how the kidney regulates your blood pressure through the whole renin-angiotensin system.
Which I was surprised to learn is like a totally separate hormonal function from just filtering water.
Completely separate. And then it controls your red blood cell count by secreting erythropoietin.
EPO.
Yeah. It manages your bone health by activating vitamin D. It even acts like a backup liver during starvation. Guyton notes it can generate about 20% of your new glucose when you're fasting. It does gluconeogenesis.
So it's an endocrine gland, a metabolic engine, and a filter all wrapped in one.
Correct. It's a regulator first and foremost.
Okay, so to keep us from getting lost in the weeds here, we've structured this dive to follow the life of a single drop of plasma.
Good idea.
We're going to start with the hardware, the functional anatomy. Then we'll hit filtration, that 180-liter brute force separation.
The house on the lawn.
Exactly. Then the reabsorption, the careful editing process, and finally, micturition, how we actually get the final waste product out of the building.
And the core theme I want you to keep an eye out for is this constant tension between speed and precision. Filtration is incredibly fast and sloppy. Reabsorption is slow and precise. The kidney is constantly balancing the two.
All right, let's start with the hardware. Let's get our bearings. If I'm holding a kidney, and I'm assuming it's about the size of a fist.
Roughly, yes. It sits retroperitoneal, which means it's kind of tucked behind your abdominal cavity, right up against the muscles of your back.
And if you slice it right down the middle, top to bottom, what do you see?
You're going to see two very distinct neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods.
I think of them as different environments. On the outside, you have the cortex. This is the shell. It looks granular, it's busy, it's highly vascular. It's where all the blood first enters. It's where the action starts.
Okay, so the cortex is the bustling city center.
Right. But then, deeper inside, you have the medulla. And it looks very different. It's structured in these triangular shapes, like pyramids, all pointing toward the center.
And you called it a different environment.
Functionally, the medulla is a desert. It's incredibly salty, it's a harsh environment, and it's where the really specialized concentration work happens. And this geography matters immensely because the chemical environment in the cortex is very different from the one in the medulla.
And spanning across these two borders is the star of our show, the nephron.
The functional unit, you have about 1 million of them in each kidney, although, as Guyton points out, that's a wasting asset.
Yeah, I saw that stat. We lose 10% of our nephrons every 10 years after age 40. That seems steep.
It is. I mean, by the time you're 80, you might be running on 60% capacity, maybe less.
So why don't we all end up with a kidney failure?
Redundancy.
Yeah.
The design has so much built-in redundancy,
right,
what engineers call functional reserve, that you won't even notice the loss.
Yeah.
That is, unless you get another disease on top of it, like diabetes or hypertension, which just accelerates the damage.
Got it. So the nephron is the worker bee here. Walk us through the assembly line. Where does it start?
Okay, it all starts in the cortex, that busy outer layer. It begins with the glomerulus.
The what?
The glomerulus. It's basically a tiny, tangled ball of capillaries, the smallest blood vessels, tucked inside a catcher's mitt called Bowman's capsule.
Okay, a ball and a mitt.
This is where the blood gets squeezed.
Squeezed?
Literally pressurized. Fluid and small molecules are sprayed out of the blood and caught by that capsule. From there, that fluid, now called filtrate, flows into the proximal tubule.
Proximal means close by, right?
Exactly. It's a long, winding tube that's still in the cortex.
And this is where the plumbing gets weird. Because the tube doesn't just stay there in the nice, safe cortex.
No. It takes a dive. It drops straight down into that salty medulla we talked about, into the desert. This is the loop of Renal.
The loop of Renal.
It goes way down, makes a sharp hairpin turn, and then comes right back up into the cortex.
Why the detour? I mean, why go down into the desert just to come right back up? It seems like an unnecessary trip.
That detour is everything. That trip into the desert is how we create concentrated urine. If we didn't have that loop, we would never be able to produce urine that's more concentrated in our blood.
And we'd have to drink water constantly.
Constantly. We'd be tied to a water source.
Yeah.
But we'll get to the mechanics of that in a little bit.
Okay. So after it comes back up out of the medulla, what happens?
It hits the distal tubule, distal meaning further away, and then finally it dumps into the collecting duct. You can think of the collecting duct as a big sewer main, collecting from thousands of nephrons and carrying the final urine down to the renal pelvis and then out to the ureter.
Okay, that's the path of the fluid. But before we run fluid through this, we have to talk about the blood supply, because it's not normal. Guyton describes it as a portal system. Usually in the body, it goes artery, capillary, vein.
Right. That's the standard circuit. Blood comes in, drops off oxygen and nutrients, picks up waste, and leaves. One capillary bed.
But the kidney does something totally different.
It doubles down. It has 2 capillary beds arranged in a series, one after the other. And this is absolutely critical for understanding the pressure physics of how the kidney works.
Okay, walk us through it.
So blood enters the kidney and flows into the afferent arteriole. Afferent means arriving.
Okay.
That arteriole leads into the first capillary bed, the glomerulus, that little ball of vessels.
Yeah.
The pressure here is incredibly high for a capillary, about 60 millimeters of mercury.
That's a fire hose we talked about.
Exactly. It's designed to spray. In a normal muscle capillary, the pressure might be 15 or 20. Here it's 60. It's built for high pressure filtration. But here's the trick. When the blood leaves the glomerulus, it doesn't go into a vein. It goes into another arteriole, the efferent arteriole. Efferent for exiting.
So it's an artery, then capillaries, then another artery.
Yes. And that second artery, the efferent one, acts like a valve.
Like a nozzle on the end of the hose.
Perfect. It's a resistance valve. And because it resists the flow of blood trying to leave, it keeps the pressure high back in the first bed, in the glomerulus.
Right. It creates back pressure.
Precisely. But once the blood pushes past that valve, it enters the second capillary bed, the peritubular capillaries.
And what's the pressure like there?
It plummets. It drops all the way down to about 13 millimeters of mercury.
So we go from 60 all the way down to 13. We go from a fire hose to a dry sponge.
A very, very thirsty sponge.
Yeah.
And that is completely by design. The first bed, the high-pressure glomerulus, is for filtration, pushing stuff out of the blood. The second bed, the low-pressure peritubular capillaries, wraps all around the tubules and is for reabsorption, sucking stuff back in.
It's architectural genius. You just separate the pushing from the pulling by putting a valve in the middle.
And that valve, the efferent arteriole, gives the kidney an incredible amount of control. Imagine you have a garden hose. If you squeeze the nozzle at the very end, what happens to the pressure inside the hose itself?
It builds up. The hose gets hard and sprays harder.
Exactly. The kidney can squeeze the nozzle of the efferent arteriole to ramp up the filtration pressure in the glomerulus, even if your body's overall blood pressure is dropping.
It's a way of isolating its own function from the rest of the body's chaos.
It creates its own stable operating environment.
Okay, so we've got the plumbing and the blood flow. Let's turn the water on. Section 2. Glomerular filtration. We're back at the glomerulus. We're pushing 180 liters of fluid out of the blood. But it's not just water, is it? It's a filter.
It is a very specific high-tech sieve.
What determines what gets through? Is it just size, like a pasta strainer?
Size is a huge part of it,
Yep.
but if it were just size, we'd be in deep trouble. The barrier is what we call the three-layer cake.
I love a good cake metaphor. What are the layers?
Okay, layer one, the innermost layer, is the endothelium, the inside lining of the capillary itself, and it's fenestrated.
Fenestrated.
It's a fancy word for it has holes, like little windows, so it's leaky.
Got it. Layer 1 is holes.
Layer 2 is the basement membrane. Think of this as a meshwork of collagen and proteoglycans. It's like a strong, fibrous net.
So we have holes, then a net.
And layer 3, on the outside, is the podocytes. These are specialized epithelial cells that wrap their feet, their little foot processes, around the capillaries, creating tiny slit pores between them.
Okay, so holes, a net, and then slits. That sounds like it would definitely stop big things like red blood cells.
And it does. Red blood cells are way too big to get through. But here is the critical catch. The main protein in your blood is albumin.
Right, that's crucial for holding water in your vessels so you don't swell up.
Exactly. Now, albumin is about 6 nanometers wide. The pores in this filter, they're about 8 nanometers wide.
Wait a minute. If the protein is 6 and the hole is 8, it should fall right through. We should be peeing out all our protein constantly.
Physically, based on size alone, yes, it fits, but we don't lose it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why? I'm guessing there's some kind of, I don't know, a force field involved.
You're not wrong. In a way, yes, it's electromagnetism. All 3 layers of that cake, the endothelium, the basement membrane, the podocytes, are covered in molecules that have a strong negative charge.
Okay.
And albumin. It's also a negatively charged protein.
Ah, so it's like trying to push the 2 south poles of a magnet together.
Exactly. The filter literally repels the protein. It's a sieve that filters by size, A and D by electrical charge.
That is incredibly cool, but it also sounds fragile. What happens if that charge just wears off?
We see exactly that in a condition called minimal change nephropathy. It's actually one of the most common causes of kidney problems in kids.
Okay.
If you look at their kidney tissue under a normal light microscope, the filter looks fine, the holes are the same size, the structure is intact.
But the magnet is broken.
The negative charge on the podocytes is lost. It just disappears. Suddenly, that electrical repulsion is gone, and albumin starts slipping through the filter.
Wow.
The kid develops massive proteinuria. You can see it as frothy urine, all because of an electrical failure, not a mechanical one.
So stability really does depend on these invisible forces. Now, speaking of forces, let's go back to the pressure for a second. You said we have 60 millimeters of mercury pushing OUT.
Right, the glomerular hydrostatic pressure.
But it's not a one-way street, is it? There must be forces pushing back.
Of course. In physiology, there is always pushback. We call these the Starling forces, and they govern fluid movement across all capillaries, not just in the kidney.
Okay, walk me through the math. We have 60 pushing out. What's pushing back in?
Well, first you have the pressure inside the capsule itself, inside Bowman's capsule. It's already got fluid in it, and that fluid is physically pushing back. That's about 18 millimeters of mercury.
Okay, so 60 minus 18, we're at 42.
Right. But then you have the big one. It's called the colloid osmotic pressure. Remember that albumin we just saved?
Yeah, the magnet kept it in the blood.
Right. Well, all those proteins in the blood act like little water magnets themselves. They want to hold on to water through osmosis. That osmotic pull of the proteins trying to keep water in the blood is about 32 millimeters of mercury.
Okay, so we have 18 pushing back from the capsule and 32 pulling back from the proteins. That's 50 total.
And we have 60 pushing out.
60 minus 50, is 10.
10.
Are you telling me the entire system, this 180-liter torrent of filtration, is driven by a net pressure of only 10 millimeters of mercury?
That's it.
That seems incredibly precarious. I mean, if my blood pressure drops just a little bit, or if there's a blockage like a kidney stone that raises the back pressure, the whole thing just stops.
It stops dead. Net filtration hits 0. This is exactly why kidney function is so exquisitely sensitive to shock or any kind of urinary obstruction. You are operating on a razor-thin margin of pressure.
This leads us perfectly into section 3, the control room. Because here's my problem with that razor-thin margin. My blood pressure isn't a constant number all day.
Not at all.
If I run to catch a bus, my pressure spikes. If I'm sleeping, it drops. So if the net filtration pressure is only 10, shouldn't my GFR, my glomerular filtration rate, be swinging wildly all day long?
Logically, yes.
Like if my pressure goes up, shouldn't I suddenly be peeing 50 liters?
Guyton actually does this calculation. He says if the kidney were just a passive pipe, an increase in blood pressure from 100 to 125 would increase urine output from 1.5 liters to 45 liters a day.
45 liters. You'd spend your whole life in the bathroom or you die of thirst in an hour.
Exactly. But that doesn't happen. You can go for a run, your arterial pressure can hit 160, and your GFR stays rock steady. This phenomenon is called autoregulation.
How? Is it the brain controlling it? Is it a nerve thing?
Surprisingly, no. The kidney does this all by itself. I mean, even if you take a kidney out of the body and perfuse it on a lab bench, or if you cut all the nerves going to it, it still does it. It has 2 main tricks.
Okay, trick number 1.
The myogenic response. This is just brute force physics. The smooth muscle in the walls of the arteries is sensitive to stretch.
Right.
So if a sudden spike in high blood pressure slams into the afferent arteriole, the entrance pipe, the wall of that vessel stretches.
And the muscle reacts to being stressed.
It snaps back. The stretch opens calcium channels. Calcium floods into the muscle cells, the muscle contracts, and the vessel clamps down.
So high pressure from the body meets high resistance from the kidney's artery?
And the flow and pressure inside the glomerulus stays normal. It's a shock absorber. It protects the delicate filter from blowing out.
Okay, that's a great protective mechanism. What's the second trick?
This one is, well, it's more elegant. It's called tubulo-glomerular feedback, or TGF.
Tubulo-glomerular. So from the tubule back to the glomerulus.
Exactly. It's a feedback loop where the end of the nephron sends a message back to the beginning of the same nephron.
It's like a quality control inspector on an assembly line yelling back at the foreman to slow down the conveyor belt.
That is a perfect analogy. There is a special cluster of cells in the distal tubule called the macula densa.
That means dense spot.
Yes, and anatomically, the tubule loops right back around so that it physically touches its own glomerulus. So these macula densa cells are sitting right there at the gate, right next to the afferent and efferent arterioles, and they are tasting the fluid as it passes by.
What are they tasting for?
Salt. Sodium chloride specifically.
Why salt? I thought we were worried about flow and pressure.
Salt is the proxy for flow. Imagine the fluid rushing through the tubule. All along the tubule, the cells lining it are constantly trying to reabsorb salt. If the flow is very fast, meaning GFR is high,
the fluid whizzes by too quickly.
Exactly. The cells don't have enough time to grab all the salt. So high flow means high salt concentration when the fluid gets to the macula densa.
Okay. And if the flow is slow, low GFR.
The cells have plenty of time to soak up almost all the salt. So low flow means a very low salt concentration at the macula densa.
Got it. So let's run a scenario. My blood pressure drops for some reason. GFR drops. Flow in the tubule is sluggish. The macula densa tastes low salt. What does it do?
It panics. It interprets low salt as dangerously low filtration, so it does 2 things simultaneously. First,
okay.
It releases chemicals, likely involving adenosine and other signaling molecules, that tell the afferent arteriole, the entrance pipe, to dilate.
Open the gates, we need more flow.
Exactly. Lower the resistance to let more blood in. But that's not all. The second thing it does is signal its neighbor cells to release an enzyme called renin.
Renin, the start of the famous renin-angiotensin system.
Yes, renin starts a cascade that creates angiotensin II. And angiotensin II has a very specific job here. It preferentially constricts the efferent arteriole.
The exit valve.
Right, so look at that beautiful combination. In response to low flow, the macula densa dilates the entrance pipe, and renin constricts the exit pipe.
You open the tap wider, and you put your thumb over the end of the hose nozzle.
And what happens to the pressure inside the hose?
It shoots way up. Oh, wow. So GFR is saved. It brings the pressure right back up.
It's a beautiful, elegant, self-correcting machine. But And there's always a but. In medicine, this system has a weak spot. It has an Achilles heel.
What's the weak spot?
Prostaglandins. Remember I said the macula densa signals the afferent arteriole to dilate?
Yeah.
Well, one of the key signals it uses for that dilation is prostaglandins. They are the safety valve that keeps the artery open, especially when the body is stressed and other things are trying to constrict it.
We take drugs that block prostaglandins all the time.
NSAIDs, ibuprofen, naproxen, Motrin, Advil, Alev.
Oh, boy.
Now, in a healthy, well-hydrated person, it's usually fine. The system has enough reserve. But imagine you have an elderly patient with heart failure. Their blood pressure is already low. Their kidneys are already stressed. Their angiotensin, the second levels, are sky high, clamping down that efferent arteriole just to keep GFR going.
So they're already relying on that constriction of the exit pipe.
Heavily. The only thing keeping enough blood flowing into that kidney is the prostaglandin safety valve holding the entrance pipe open.
And then they take an Advil for their arthritis pain.
And you block the prostaglandins, the safety valve vanishes, the afferent arteriole clamps shut.
So the entrance is closed and the exit is already constricted.
And the kidney suffocates. The blood flow just stops. You can send a patient into acute renal failure just by giving them a common over-the-counter NSAI at exactly the wrong time.
That is a terrifyingly clear example of why understanding the mechanism matters. It's not just don't take these pills. It's don't remove the only remaining safety feature while the system is already failing.
Exactly. Physiology is everything.
Okay, so we've successfully filtered the blood. We've meticulously regulated the pressure. We now have our 180 liters of raw filtrate sitting in the tubules. Now comes the hard part, deciding what to keep.
The Reclamation Project, Section 4, tubular reabsorption.
This is where the kidney truly earns its keep as the editor. We need to take that 180 liters of filtrate and somehow pull back the 99% we want to keep while making sure to leave the toxins and waste in that 1% we flush away.
And to really understand how this works, we need to briefly touch on the concept of clearance. It's the language nephrologists use to talk about how efficiently the kidney is working.
So what is clearance?
It's just the volume of plasma that is completely scrubbed clean of a substance per minute.
Okay, give us the benchmarks. How do you measure it?
We use 3 key substances to map the extremes of what the kidney can do. First, there's a plant starch called inulin, not insulin, inulin.
Why inulin?
Because the kidney is completely indifferent to it. It filters it freely, but then nothing. It doesn't reabsorb it, it doesn't secrete it, it just ignores it.
So whatever amount is filtered is exactly what ends up in the urine.
Exactly. Therefore, the clearance of inulin is a direct measure of the GFR. It tells you how much fluid is being filtered.
Okay, that's benchmark 1, GFR.
Benchmark 2 is glucose. Glucose is also filtered freely, but the body wants it all back. It's precious fuel. So in a healthy person, the tubules reabsorb 100% of it.
Meaning the clearance of glucose is 0.
Correct. We normally pee 0 sugar. And the third substance is called PAH, para-aminohippuric acid. The kidney hates this stuff.
Hates it.
Actively despises it. It filters some of it, and then whatever isn't filtered, the tubules actively grab from the surrounding blood and pump it into the urine. It removes almost 100% of it in a single pass through the kidney.
So PAH clearance measures the total flow of plasma to the kidney.
Exactly. It tells you how much blood the kidney is seeing. So with those 3, you can map out the kidney's basic functions.
Okay, so now the big question. How does the kidney actually pull all the good stuff back? What's the engine driving this massive recycling plant?
It all comes down to one single heroic protein, the sodium-potassium ATPase pump.
The famous pump.
The pump. This is the battery of the kidney. It's located on the basolateral membrane of the tubule cells. That's the back door of the cell, the side that faces the blood, not the urine.
And what does it do?
It is constantly, relentlessly burning ATP to pump sodium out of the cell and into the blood. This one action keeps the sodium concentration inside the cell very, very low.
So inside the cell, it's low sodium. But in the filtrate, in the urine, it's high sodium.
Which creates a massive electrochemical gradient. Sodium in the urine desperately wants to get into that low sodium cell. It wants to rush down that steep hill.
And the kidney harnesses that energy.
It's like a hydroelectric dam. The kidney uses the powerful rush of sodium entering the cell from the urine side to power the transport of almost everything else.
So things hitch a ride.
Glucose, amino acids, vitamins, phosphate, they all hitch a ride with sodium as it comes into the cell. This is called secondary active transport.
They don't use ATP directly. They use the energy stored in the sodium gradient that the pump created.
Exactly. That one pump on the back door powers almost all reabsorption on the front door.
Let's talk about the proximal tubule first. This is the workhorse, right?
The bulk handler. The proximal tubule is responsible for reabsorbing about 65% of everything that was filtered. Sodium, water, chloride. And crucially, it reabsorbs 100% of your filtered glucose and amino acids.
So by the time fluid leaves the proximal tubule, it's still isotonic. It has the same concentration as blood, but there's just a lot less of it. About a third of the original volume is left.
Correct. But let's just pause on that glucose transport for a second, because this is where physiology directly explains a major disease: diabetes.
Okay. We mentioned glucose hitches a ride with sodium via the SGLT transporters.
SGLT, the sodium glucose link transporter. The key here is to think of these transporters as seats on a bus. There are a limited number of seats available on the cell membrane. This is a concept called the transport maximum, or TM.
So normally in a healthy person, we have more than enough seats for the amount of sugar we filter.
Yes. A healthy person filters glucose. Every single molecule finds an empty seat on the SGLT bus and gets reabsorbed back into the blood. Your urine glucose is 0.
But in diabetes mellitus,
the blood sugar is so high that the amount of glucose being filtered into the urine is enormous. It completely overwhelms the number of seats. The bus is full.
And there are people left at the bus stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The excess glucose can't be reabsorbed because there are no transporters left to carry it, so it stays in the urine.
It spills over.
It spills over. And here is the immediate physical consequence. Glucose is an osmole. It attracts water. If glucose stays in the tubule, it holds water in the tubule by osmosis.
So you pee more. A lot more.
Much more. That's why one of the cardinal signs of untreated diabetes is polyuria, excessive urination. It's an osmotic diuresis caused by running out of seats on the glucose bus.
And now we have drugs that intentionally do this, right? The SGLT2 inhibitors.
We do. It's a brilliant application of physiology. They are diabetes drugs that work by blocking some of those seats on purpose. They force you to pee out sugar, which in turn lowers your blood sugar.
You're using the spillover mechanism as a feature, not a bug.
Precisely. It's a fantastic example of a drug designed based on a deep understanding of the transport mechanism.
Okay, moving down the line. We've done the bulk reabsorption. Now we enter the deep, dark depths of the medulla. Section 5, the loop of Henle.
This is my favorite part of the nephron. It's physically beautiful and mathematically elegant. The entire goal of the loop of Henle is to do one thing: uncouple salt from water.
Uncouple them, but they're always together. Water follows salt like a puppy.
Usually. But the loop of Henle cleverly separates them in order to create a massive concentration gradient. And it does this because the descending limb and the ascending limb have totally different personalities.
Okay, start with the descending limb. It's heading down into that salty desert.
Right. The cells of the descending limb are packed with aquaporin's water channels. They are highly permeable to water, but they are pretty much impermeable to salt.
So as the fluid goes down into the salty depths of the medulla,
all that salt outside the tubule sucks the water out. The fluid inside the tube gets smaller and smaller in volume and more concentrated. Super salty. Hypertonic.
Okay, so it gets concentrated on the way down.
Right. Then it turns the hairpin corner at the bottom and starts to go up the thick ascending limb. And this segment is the complete opposite of the descending one.
How so?
It is watertight, essentially impermeable to water. But it has a powerful pump, the NAK2Cl cotransporter, that actively pumps salt out of the tubule and into the surrounding tissue.
So on the way up, salt is leaving, but the water is trapped inside.
Exactly. So what happens to the fluid inside the tubule? You're removing the salt, so it becomes very dilute, hypotonic.
But wait, where does that salt go?
It goes into the tissue of the medulla.
Which is what makes the medulla salty in the first place.
Do you see the cycle? The ascending limb pumps salt out to make the medulla salty. That saltiness then pulls water out of the descending limb, which concentrates the fluid that is then delivered to the ascending limb, which allows it to pump even more salt out.
It's a positive feedback loop. It feeds itself, the counter current multiplier.
Precisely. It multiplies the gradient. It turns the entire medulla into a hypertonic battery that stores potential energy, and we will use that battery later to concentrate the final urine.
And this transporter, that NAK2Cl pump in the ascending limb, that's famous in pharmacology too, isn't it?
It is the target of the most powerful diuretics we have. The loop diuretics, like furosemide, brand name Lasix.
So how does Lasix work? What does it do?
It jams that pump. It poisons it. It stops the kidney from pumping salt out of the ascending limb. And if you can't pump salt out,
you can't make the medulla salty, you lose the gradient.
You lose the entire multiplier system, the battery goes dead. And if you don't have a salty medulla, You can't pull water out of the descending limb or the collecting duct. The water just stays in the tubule.
And you pee out massive amounts of fluid.
Exactly. It effectively sabotages the kidney's ability to concentrate urine, which is great if you are trying to offload fluid in a patient with heart failure and edema, but it shows just how critical that one pump and that one gradient are to normal function.
So we've filtered, we've bulk reabsorbed, and we've built a salt gradient. Now we enter the fine-tuning department, section 6, the distal tubule and the collecting duct.
This is where the final decisions are made. The proximal tubule does the heavy lifting without much thought, but the distal tubule and the collecting duct determine the final quality of the urine based on what the body needs right now. This is where the hormonal regulation really kicks in.
Okay, start with the early distal tubule.
It's functionally pretty similar to the ascending loop. It continues to pump salt out, further diluting the urine. This is the site of action for thiazide diuretics. They block the NaCl cotransporter here.
Then we get to the late distal tubule and the collecting duct. This is where things get really interesting. We have different cell types here, right?
Yes. The two main players are the principal cells and the intercalated cells.
Who does what?
The principal cells are the ones handling sodium, potassium, and water. They are the ones that answer the phone when aldosterone calls from the adrenal gland.
Aldosterone, that's the salt-retaining hormone.
Right. When your blood pressure is low or your potassium level is high, the adrenal gland releases aldosterone. It travels to the principal cells and tells them to build more sodium channels and more sodium-potassium pumps. It basically says, save every last grain of salt you can find.
And because of the electrical balance, when we save a positive ion, like sodium,
we have to get rid of another positive ion to pay for it. To pull positive sodium in from the urine, we have to push positive potassium out into the urine. So the net effect of aldosterone is to increase sodium reabsorption and increase potassium secretion.
This explains the classic findings in Addison's disease.
Perfectly. In Addison's, your adrenal glands fail, so you have no aldosterone. What happens? You can't save salt, so you lose massive amounts of sodium in your urine, your blood pressure crashes, and you can't get rid of potassium.
You retain potassium. Hyperkalemia.
Which is incredibly dangerous. It can stop your heart. It's a life-threatening electrolyte imbalance caused by the failure of this one hormone to act on this one cell type.
Wow. Now, what about the other cells, the intercalated cells?
They're the acid-base specialists. They fine-tune your blood pH. The type A intercalated cells secrete acid-hydrogen ions into the urine to fix an acidosis. The type B cells do the opposite. They secrete bicarbonate to fix an alkalosis. They are the reason your urine pH can swing anywhere from a very acidic 4.5 to a very alkaline 8.0, depending on your diet and metabolic state.
Okay, back to water. The other huge hormone acting here is ADH, antidiuretic hormone, also called vasopressin.
This is the master controller of water balance. Now remember, the collecting duct is normally watertight.
The rain jacket.
Exactly. Without ADH, that jacket is zipped up tight. Water flows right through, stays in the tubule, and you produce a large volume of very dilute urine. This is a condition called diabetes insipidus, the tasteless urine, as opposed to the sweet urine of diabetes mellitus.
But when you're dehydrated,
your brain, the pituitary gland, releases ADH. ADH travels through the blood to the collecting duct and tells the principal cells to insert special water channels called aquaporin 2 into their membranes.
It literally punches holes in the rain jacket.
It installs little portholes, yes. Now remember that incredibly salty gradient we worked so hard to build in the medulla with the loop of Renal, that hypertonic battery.
The salty desert.
Yes. Once ADH opens those aquaporin doors, the water inside the collecting duct sees that salty desert outside, and it rushes out of the tubule to join it. It leaves the urine to join the salt.
So the urine volume shrinks dramatically, and its concentration skyrockets.
And that is how you produce a small volume of highly concentrated urine to survive dehydration.
Yeah.
You are reclaiming pure water, leaving the waste behind.
So ADH is the key that unlocks the door, but the loop of Renal is what built the incredibly desirable room that the water wants to run into.
That is a beautiful way to put it. You absolutely need both. If you take Lasix and destroy the room, the gradient ADH can open the door all at once, but the water has no reason to leave.
And there's one last secret ingredient that Genong mentions, urea.
Ah, yes, urea recirculation. This is a very cool concept. We usually think of urea as just a waste product we want to get rid of.
Right.
But in the deepest part of the collecting duct, ADH actually helps the kidney reabsorb some urea out of the urine and into the medullary tissue.
Why on earth would we reabsorb waste?
To contribute to the osmolarity. The urea adds to the saltiness of the medulla. It makes that hypertonic battery even stronger. It's like using your own trash to fuel the furnace. It helps draw even more water out.
Incredible efficiency. It's using everything at its disposal.
Nothing is wasted.
So we've filtered, we've reabsorbed, we've secreted, we've concentrated, we have the final product, urine. Now we just have to get rid of it. Section 7, micturition.
This brings us to the bladder. And the anatomy here is designed for two contradictory goals. Quiet, low-pressure storage, and then sudden, high-pressure release. The main muscle of the bladder wall is the detrusor muscle.
And it acts as a syncytium. I've heard that term with the heart.
Yes, exactly like the heart. It means the muscle fibers have low-resistance electrical pathways connecting them. So if one part of the muscle gets stimulated to contract, the signal spreads across the whole bladder almost instantly.
So the whole bag contracts at once.
Yeah.
A uniform squeeze. You don't want a bladder that sort of twitches in different sections.
You want a coordinated, complete emptying. Now, the urine gets there from the kidneys via the ureters. And a key point here from the texts, it's not gravity.
Right. You can pee standing on your head?
Please don't try that at home, but yes, physiologically you could.
Yeah.
The ureters use peristalsis rhythmic muscular waves to shoot little jets of urine down into the bladder.
And they enter the bladder at an angle.
Yes, they enter obliquely, tunneling through the muscle wall. This is a brilliant, simple design that acts as a one-way valve.
How so?
When the bladder fills and the pressure inside starts to rise, that pressure compresses the ends to the ureters where they run through the wall, sealing them shut. This prevents urine from flowing backward up to the kidneys.
And if that fails?
You get vesicularal reflux. It's a common problem, especially in kids. Urine goes back up, can carry bacteria with it, and causes recurrent kidney infections.
Okay, the bladder is filling up. Why don't we just leak constantly? What's holding it in?
We have two gates, or sphincters. The internal sphincter, right at the neck of the bladder, which is smooth muscle and involuntary, and then the external sphincter, which is skeletal muscle. That's the one under your conscious voluntary control via the pudendal nerve.
So how does the reflex to urinate actually work?
It's fundamentally a spinal reflex.
Yeah.
As the bladder fills, stretch receptors in the wall start to fire. They send a signal up to the sacral region of the spinal cord.
Okay.
The cord then sends a parasympathetic signal right back to the bladder that says, contract the detrusor muscle.
But that happens all the time as it fills. I don't wet my pants every time my bladder stretches a little bit.
Because your brain is constantly inhibiting that reflex. The pons, a part of your brainstem, sends powerful inhibitory signals down the spinal cord. It says, no, not yet. It keeps the external sphincter tight and tells the detrusor to relax. Until you decide it's the socially appropriate time. Then, your brain releases the brake. You consciously, voluntarily relax the external sphincter, and you can even contract your abdominal muscles to increase the pressure a bit, which gives a final strong push to the stretch receptors, and that allows the reflex to take over and completely empty the tank.
It's a fascinating handover. From storage mode, which is under brain control, to release mode, which is a facilitated spinal reflex.
And that coordination is vital. If that communication breaks down, say in a spinal cord injury, you lose that voluntary override. You might get what's called an automatic bladder that just empties reflexively whenever it fills, regardless of where you are.
So we've tracked the plasma from the renal artery all the way to the restroom. Let's try to wrap this all up in the outro. We started with this idea of the volume paradox, this crazy idea of filtering 180 liters just to end up with 1 liter of urine.
And I hope we've seen that this massive, seemingly wasteful flow is what allows for precision and stability. The kidney doesn't sit back and wait for problems to arise. It aggressively, proactively processes the entire blood volume 60 times a day to keep it perfect.
It really strikes me now thinking about it how energetically expensive this all is.
You mean the ATP costs?
Yeah. Guyton notes that the kidney consumes oxygen at twice the rate of the brain per gram of tissue, and almost all of that energy is going to fuel those sodium-potassium pumps.
The ones on the back door of the cells.
Exactly. It's burning huge amounts of fuel just to reclaim the stuff it literally just threw away seconds before.
It is an incredibly expensive organ to run. And it begs the final question, really. Why? Why did evolution design a system that throws everything out just to buy it all back at such a great cost? Why not just have a system that secretes the bad stuff?
And that's the provocative thought I want to leave everyone with.
I think the evolutionary answer, the one that makes the most sense, is about the unknown toxin. If the kidney only had pumps to secrete what it knew was bad, it would need a specific transporter for every single poison on Earth.
Which is completely impossible.
Right. You can't have a transporter for a new industrial chemical that hasn't been invented yet, or a poison in a berry you've never eaten before.
Huh.
But by filtering everything, by wiping the slate completely clean, and then only having specific transporters for what you know is good and valuable.
Like glucose, salt, amino acids.
You automatically clear the unknown. You keep the gold, and everything else, whether it's plain old urea or some strange new drug metabolite, gets flushed away by default.
The system protects us from the unknown by assuming everything is trash until proven valuable.
Exactly. Stability depends on what you let go.
And what you painstakingly choose to keep.
That's the kidney in a nutshell.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into renal physiology. Go drink some water, appreciate your aquaporins, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Take care.